When the video goes on for our crowd, people online are going to see it, yeah? It goes on.
No, she's saying...
The link is on, I checked it. But when the video is playing for the crowd, are people going to see it? The people that are looking at it online. Is it going directly into the internet?
Not that expensive.
Or do you have to show the screen? Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Stroll of Rabib.
Esther?
Ready to go?
Good evening. On behalf of my brother
brother and siblings, I want to thank you for joining us tonight for the Shloshim of my dear father. Tonight we will have a Siyama Mishnayos, special speakers talking about my father and his many pa'ulas and video presentations. There will also be a Pa'ul Mamish, a special take-home call to action for all of us to continue his incredible work. Tonight, around the world, in Eretz Yisrael, Johannesburg, South Africa, and here in Crown Heights, with many watching around the world, hundreds have gathered to L'chai Yitin Al Libei for my dear father. My father was zeichet to be an ish matzliach. He had a siyata d'shmaya and was able to accomplish an incredible amount during his almost 62 years b'Guf Kashmi. He led a powerhouse organization for Avtzon HaMayonis for over 40 years. He made hundreds of shidduchim. He was a chassid and makosher in everything he did. Most personally to me and my family, he was a very dedicated father. That's the part that people cannot imagine. With all my father's hard work, joyous personality, and love of l'chaim afarbringen, my father was an extremely devoted father. He was always there for us. There when we got up in the morning, there to put us to sleep, there to take us to a doctor visit, there to take us shopping, there to learn with us, and there to celebrate our accomplishments. He was a family man all the way. Together with my dear mother, Zozi Zayn Gesund, he raised a beautiful family. His 12 Shvatim Kenai and Har were his greatest pride and joy. How did he do so much? I don't know, but one thing we can learn from him is Atzlacha B'Zman, that if we are Mesudar and committed to our tafkid, then we can do so much. I want to wish my mother and siblings that we should give our father lots of nachas and be zeichet to v'kitzu v'ranenu sheichni afer v'hu b'seicham, take it from Yam Amish. To begin the program, I want to call on my brother Shuki, who flew in from Yeshiva in Benoit, especially for the Shloshim, to make a Siyam Mishnayos and to share a word from the Rebbe.
Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Asur HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'hanchel l'chol tzadik v'tzadik shlish meis v'asara v'elamis. Hashem will give to every single tzadik l'asalavi 310 elamis. Shnemar l'hanchel v'yesh v'tzisem amali. To give over to my loved ones, yesh, and I'll fill up their storehouses. Yesh stands for 310 and that refers to 310 elamis. Amar Rabbi Shimon b'Chalafta. Le'matzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha le'Yisrael ela hashavim. Hashem cannot find a kli fit to hold bracha for Yidden, only peace. Shenever Hashem eiz lami yitin. Hashem yivarech tamei v'shavim. Hashem will bless his nation, that specifically with shalom. Hadam lach shitas the Mishnah, v'adam chalon, datam lach shitas the Mishnah, v'data chalon, l'nis sheminach, shitas the Mishnah, v'data sheminon, l'ba'am adin, l'ba'am adasi. Amen. Chaim, stop before speaking, whatever. Chaim. In this letter, the Rebbe is writing in regard to a Siyum HaMishnayos. According to a teaching of the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe derives from the words in the Parsha regarding the building of the Mishkan, that the inyan of the Mishkan is V'shachanti b'seichan. Hashem said that He will rest in all of us and every single person. This is the unification between the Gashmias and the Ruchnias. To draw down the Shekhinah into this world, for resting in the Mishkan, which was made from gold, silver, copper, etc., and through bringing up Kavanas to Hashem. And in our lives, this act of bringing down Shekhinah into this world, this means creating a mikdash for Hashem by allowing the neshama to overpower the guf. That our bodies should serve our souls and totally be given over and do whatever the neshama wants. The way to get to this achdus, this unification, this harmony between Gashmias and the Ruchnias, is through Torah. Like at the end of the Mishnayos that we just read, Shloshim, harmony and peace, is the vessel that contains the blessing for all Yidden. As it says, Hashem yivarech es amei v'shalom. Hashem benches Yidden with peace. As a preparation for that, how we get to that stage of Shalom, which brings to brachis, it is clarified in the beginning of the pasuk. Hashem oiz la'am yitin. Hashem gives His nation strength. That through Torah, which is oiz, strength, we add Shalom into the world. And therefore, the Torah was given to us Yidden, the strongest nation, in order to use our natural strength for good and to knock out the not good, making peace. According to this, we can understand why it is so important to learn Torah, especially in the strongest years of a person's life, when we are young. It should be Hashem's will that our learning should be a proper learning that evolves into action, so that we build a mishkan for Hashem in our lives every day. And like we learned, the hint in the beginning of the Mishnayos, that me'emasai kayin ashma ba'avin. At what time of night are we able to start reading the Shema? This teaches us that at a time of night, darkness, in this world, is incumbent upon us to announce that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The Aleph of Echad symbolizes the oneness of Hashem, and a person draws that down into the Ches, the 7 skies and 1 earth, and then into the Daled, the 4 directions, making peace between Hashem and the world. Therefore, thereby making the Mishkan, which is the Elah for us in our daily lives, to overpower the Neshama over the Guf, and to bring down Ruchnias into Gashmias and make them one. Chaim.
The Baal Shem Tov taught us that everything is B'Hashgacha HaPratis. Yemim of Gimel Shvat, the day of my father's Petira, describes the printing of Torah Ar and Lakuti Torah, the Marmarim of the Alter Rebbe. The Yemim of tonight, Gimel Adar Aleph, the day of my father's Shloshim reads, Rabbeinu Zakin Omar, Mitzvahs Ahavas Yisrael, Kol Yelid Am Yisrael, Asher Me'elam Leida Oisei, Umikol Shkin Achaver Adas Yisrael, Asher B'mkei Megurei, Shu Ben Ebas Adasei. The Alter Rebbe taught that the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael, loving a fellow Jew, applies to every member of the Jewish people, even if one has never seen him. How much more does it apply to a member of the Jewish neighborhood in which one lives, to every man or woman who is a member of one's own community? These two concepts, printing Chassidus and Ahavas Yisrael, define my father's life. And these two concepts are the theme of our event tonight. Please turn your attention to the screens where we will watch a special video presentation highlighting my father's tremendous Ahavas Yisrael, including his work in Shidduchim.
Living for others. The extraordinary Ahavas Yisrael of Rabbi Yonah Avtzon, Olav Shalom. Rabbi Yonah Avtzon was a man known for his many talents, the driving force behind Sichos in English, an accomplished shadchan, a dear friend and advisor, and most of all, a loving father, husband, grandfather, and family man. It seems that everyone thought they knew the real Yonah. But seeing all that he accomplished during his lifetime, one might not recognize the uniting force behind it all. His deep sense that life was not about him, it was about what he was needed for. He lived for others. Born on the 6th of Adar, 1957, to Rabbi Meir and Rebbetzin Chiana Avtzon, Rabbi Yonah grew up steeped in a tradition of giving, watching his parents welcome and care for others from all walks of life, spiritually and materially, even as they devotedly raised their own 15 children, B'Ayin Hara. Rabbi Yonah learned to emulate those traits, and they would go on to follow him throughout his life. As a young man, he set out for New York to study in the Rebbe's yeshiva. He was introduced to and married his wife Rivka. May she live and be well. Together they built a home founded firmly on Torah and mitzvahs, a home always open to family and guests alike. Rabbi Yonah's caring nature extended far beyond his home. He was always going out of his way to help others in any way he could.
I told him that I had 6 tapes that I produced from a lecture series on the Hebrew alphabet, and that perhaps he would want to sell those tapes in Sichos in English. At that time, Sichos in English was also selling tapes of different Hasidic ideas. And he listened to the tapes, and he came back a few days later, and he said to me, "You know, Ari, I think we should do a book out of it." I said, "Are you serious?" He says, "Yeah." And he helped me, he directed me exactly how to get the book from the cassettes onto paper, and he worked with me to reveal my talents.
And such a warm, outgoing personality that everybody felt like he was their best friend.
I wouldn't even need to speak to him. Yena was already taking care of me. When we came to the Rebbe, Yena made sure that we were up front and center. He made sure we saw, he made sure we were there by the Rebbe. We came to the Rebbe, he made sure we were right in front of the Rebbe.
He helped several young men looking for work or trying to build their new businesses by finding them jobs at Sichos in English. No favor was too big for him, and no kindness was beneath his dignity. And he expected nothing in return, because it was never about him. One example of this quiet, humble service is the way he took responsibility for his block shul, originally known as Sosnovich. Although davening in 770 was very dear to him, he took to heart the Rebbe's request to keep the various neighborhood shuls open.
One of the reasons that Yonah was involved in the shul so much, when the Rebbe spoke about the shchuna of Crown Heights, that the meisters and Crown Heights have to see not to close down. And even after all the original members were not here with us anymore, we had our own shul. It was very difficult for us. There were only a few people, mostly elderly people. But Yonah was the young man. He was the Ruach HaChaim. He saw to it there was always a minyan. If there was difficulty, he would be the one on the streets to going and gathering the minyan. He would be the one, if someone had to go to the Yamid, he always went to the Yamid, never complained. It was hard, it was difficult. He worked the Aliyahs. And the main thing, he made everybody feel happy. Everybody was comfortable. It was a small shul. No one really knew about us. It was a quiet shul. And yet, Yaina worked with such diligence, with such mesiras nefesh, with such involvement, as if it was like the biggest thing in the world. You only knew one thing: is Yaina here? If Yaina is here, we know that everything is taken care of. There's nothing to worry about. There'll be a minyan, there'll be a kiddush when necessary, there'll be a bal tefillah. Whatever had to be done, Yaina did it. We all just sat by on the side and reaped the benefits of having this very special minyan.
While this quiet chesed went unobserved by many, another of Rabbi Yona's projects, his work as a shadchan, was the talk of town. Beginning even before his own marriage, Rabbi Yona was always thinking of potential matches. He saw his shidduchim as yet another way to help others, and he treated everyone who walked through his office with the utmost care and respect.
He would spend many, many hours in his office trying to think of ideas of how to match a boy and a girl.
Yaina did 5 of the 6 shidduchim of the children, my children that are married so far. And his involvement in shidduchim was thorough and complete and total.
For those who consulted with Rabbi Yona, he was a source of hope and an anchor of calm through sometimes stormy waters.
He was always interested in our well-being, and he was always keeping abreast, asking me what's going on, and what's doing with this one, what's doing with that one.
Over the past 15 years, especially, Rabbi Yona devoted large chunks of his day and night to answering emails, phone calls, and messages from parents and their children. Though the work was tiring, disappointing, and often thankless, he kept at it.
And he was someone who was compassionate about helping out some families that needed the help. And even if he wouldn't get any money from them, he would do it because he wanted to help them. And this is what was so special about him.
As the Rebbe said many times, that the way we bring Mashiach is by having more children. And therefore, he saw it his mission and his goal to do whatever he could within his capacity to make more shidduchim. And he worked tirelessly on this. I would call him in the middle of the night, and he would scream at me and say, "Why are you calling me?" And yet he would still answer my questions.
Rabbi Yona never gave up on anyone or got burnt out. He treated every successful shidduch as if it were his first, his excitement overflowing.
Every time he would make another shidduch, if it was number 350 or 375, he would call me up with such a smile. You could see the smile through the phone. How he would say, "Rachmiel, I made by 376 shidduch." It was a passion of his. It was something that he lived with.
He used his wisdom to push a shidduch forward. He was involved in the simcha. I believe he came to every single one of my weddings. He schlepped out to Toronto to celebrate with us at the conclusion of a successful shidduch.
During his lifetime, Rabbi Yona was zeicha to assist in thousands of shidduchim and bring almost 400 to fruition. While he celebrated each match, he was never content, so long as there was someone out there still in need of his assistance. May the schus of these deeds, those acknowledged and those which we will never know, as well as the hundreds of Jewish homes he built, and the thousands of neshamas brought down to the world as a result of his efforts, bring his neshama and aliyah, and serve as a guiding light for our actions, so that we may see the ultimate shidduch of Hashem and Bnei Yisrael with the coming of Mashiach now.
My oldest brother-in-law has been part of my family almost as long as I have been, and he was very close to my father. My father used to daven every morning for the last while in the yeshiva that Itzik founded and runs. My father loved his in-law children, Chasane Kivnei, and I want to ask Rabbi Yitzchak Wolf to share some thoughts and David Chizuk with us.
Yitzhak Hashem, later this evening, we're going to hear from others about my Shver's Askanos, and especially about his extraordinary accomplishments in Avtzon and Mayanis. I would like to share a little bit on behalf of the family about my Shver as a family person and about the chinuch he gave his children. Over the course of the Shiva, there was a staggering number of some 5,000 to 10,000 people who came through the door to show their support and to be menachem. And there's something that we kept on hearing over and over again. Their father was a gute chaver meiner. Their father was very close to our family. Your father is someone who I was able to confide in. Truth be told, in the family, we were actually unaware of how popular my Shver is and how deeply so many people felt connected to him. So many people of all stripes, young and old, rechter, linker, people with varying personalities and backgrounds, all feel that they've lost a close friend. So we'd be thinking and wondering, Uknei lecha chaver, how did he acquire so many friends? Has he read many books on relationships? Definitely not. Did he have exceptional communication skills? Was he the type of polished individual who knew the right thing to say to the right person at exactly the right time? Not necessarily. After all, my Shver was notorious for ending a phone conversation without any closing remarks, leaving you to wonder where he disappeared. And he would never sugarcoat his words. He'd tell you to your face exactly what he thought. So what was his secret? The only conclusion that the family was able to come up with is that he was genuine. When he helped another person, it was pure. Without feeling superior, without strings attached, and without any ulterior motives. It was simply von Herz und mit Anemes. And when it's yotzim al halev, it's nichnasim al halev. The same is true regarding the chinuch he gave at home. My Shver wasn't an ish chinuch, and never considered himself an expert mechanech. He wasn't the type of father who gave drashos, constantly teaching and explaining things to his children. He didn't follow any rules and systems in being mechanech his children. So what was his key? The answer is that he had no key. He was for real, and he represented emes. He wasn't one person in the streets and another person at home. His Yiddishkeit was genuine, sincere, authentic, and altruistic. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't motivated by social pressure, and wasn't trying to create a certain image. To him, that was all bluff, and my Shver hated bluff. And because his Yiddishkeit was emes, it was constant, it was always, and it was everywhere. The children saw that Tefillah b'tzibur was not negotiable by him, even when it was inconvenient. That he would go to mikvah every single morning, in Aleifim von Azoi und nit anders, even when he was very ill, and it would take him a good hour. They knew that he had high kashrus standards that were very important to him. That he had a real koch in Yanigu Mashiach that never faded as the years passed. The children saw that he wouldn't miss a day of Limud Rambam, Shloshim Prakim, with the familiar sight many evenings of Tati asleep on his Rambam. This was him. It was done with a pashtus and without fanfare. He took the Eibishter and the Rebbe seriously. This is the type of Dugma Chaya that he was, And this is what was naturally absorbed by his children. Torah and mitzvahs and the Rebbe's Avtzon are non-negotiable. Azoi und nicht anders. Another critical element of his chinuch was his joy. The expression, Yishveres ist sein Ayid, was not my shver. For him, nothing was a burden. Always seen with a big smile. Yiddishkeit was a joy. Doing the Rebbe Shlichus was a joy. Having many children, providing for them and caring for them was joy. Doing a favor for another Yid was a joy. My Shver loved the Rebbe deeply. Still etched in the memories of his children is that almost 20 years ago at Shmuli's Bar Mitzvah, my Shver said a lot of l'chaim as he was accustomed to do. At a certain point he started crying and crying, with only one word repeatedly coming out of his mouth. Rebbe, Rebbe, Rebbe. It made an indelible impression on his children. What came out when he said l'chaim was his deep love for the Rebbe. This was who he was at his core. He would write to the Rebbe very often and would go to the oil on a weekly basis. Every day with the Pagra he would be in 770, the night before and the night after. One night watching a video of the Rebbe and the other night Pagraining. And he loved spending time in 770. He became part of its furniture. 2 years ago, when he was in the hospital, I knew that was missing. He was literally in tears. Not because he had just found out that his life hung in the balance. Not because he was in pain. He cried because it was Yud Aleph Nissen and he couldn't be in 7-7. It was his authenticity, along with his joy and love for the Rebbe, that made him who he was. This is the ruach that he brought into the home, and this is what was passed on to his children. So my Shver was a man of emes. He loved his family as well as every other Yid with an emes. His Yiddishkeit and his kashrus were authentic and joyful. But there was yet another critical piece to his chinuch. The Nosson Gerari, Shliach and Rebbe to Buffalo, was once in Yechidus. After discussing all of the Heilige Arbeit that he was accomplishing in Buffalo, the Rebbe became serious and said, when the Kavanah Primus from them allen is to have chassidische Nakas from the Kinder. The Rebbe's message was clear: to prioritize family, to prioritize the chinuch of the children. My Shver was a big asking, a very busy person with lots on his head. He edited cover to cover every single one of the hundreds of books that he published. He was in charge of the printing. He was the salesperson, the delivery man, the fundraiser, and all the other myriad tasks involved in running a place. As a shadchan, he would have to communicate dozens and dozens of messages daily via text, emails, and phone calls. He would have constant meetings with those looking for a shidduch and with their parents, besides for the many other projects that he took upon himself and was busy with over the years. What's astonishing is that none of this came at the expense of his family. To the contrary, my Shver was very much at home, available, and there for the family. He was there every morning to greet his children as they woke up, help them out with breakfast. He was there every single evening helping out with bedtime routines. He would learn with his boys. Whenever there were errands and appointments, he was always available to drive. He would attend every family gathering and loved every minute of it. He even came to his grandchildren's birthday parties. He cherished his children. He cherished his children-in-law. He cherished his grandchildren and was very proud of them. During the first couple weeks after the shocking and tragic passing of my dear Shver, the family spent lots of quality time together, sharing memories, bonding, and being very open with each other. One thing that was clearly evident from these conversations is that not one of his children feels that he or she lost out in any way, shape, or form as a result of their father's askaros. To the contrary, he spent so much time at home and was so involved that his children had very little knowledge of his askaros and accomplishments. Perhaps this is one of the most powerful aspects of his chinuch, that his family came first. His frumkeit, chassidishkeit, his kashrus, avos Yisrael, shidduchim, askanos, Avtzon, changing the world, they didn't come on the cheshbon of his family. It was his own mesiras nefesh. He was not sacrificing his children to do bigger things. So in the spirit of Chai Yitin Aliboy, let us take a lesson from my Shver, how important it is to prioritize our own family and the chinuch of our children, no matter how busy we are, and no matter how important those things that we're busy with are. When the kavana pnimis for them allen is to have chassidish and achas for the kingdom. My Shver, currently in Eilam Ha'emes, is looking down at his children in 8 o'clock, and there's no question as a kvelt mit nachas. It's our job not to let him down and to continue giving him the abundance of nachas that he truly deserves until we'll be zeicha to the izgalus from heaven, the yikitzu v'dan nushayt me'afar u'v'sleicha.
Thank you. Second focus of our evening is my father's commitment to and accomplishments in Avtzon Hamayanis. We will hear from guest speakers and watch a special video presentation about his work in Sichos in English. The Mayor Prager got to know my father in recent years and they became very close friends. The Mayor has an incredible passion for Avtzon Hamayanis and helped my father tremendously in Sichos in English. He has given hundreds and thousands of hours to help my father in the Mossad and has been a strong financial supporter as well. He recently joined the Vod of Sichos in English that will make sure to keep my father's work going, Mechayel El Chayel. On behalf of my mother and family, we want to thank you for being there the way you have. We deeply appreciate it. It's my honor to call upon the Mayor Prager.
Wash it out. 66 years ago, the Rebbe said a mimer, Loitia Mishakela. It was, all the Rebbe's memoirs are amazing, but this mimer is beyond amazing. Actually, Simon Jacobson's father-in-law, H.K. Gansberg, wrote in his diary, in his Yaman, that he prays, he davens, that he never forgets the impact of what it was like to be at that mimer. Moshe Harari, then the famous Mashpia of Yale, came to America at the time, and he wrote back to Israel that what he saw during this mimer would be impossible to describe. He says concepts of azoza atzmis and things that he learned in Chassidus that he never understood, he literally saw at that mimer. The Rebbe was crying bitterly during that mimer. It was hard for the Rebbe to say the mimer. It was hard to hear the mimer, and the Rebbe continued crying afterwards. That mimer, what the Rebbe was speaking about, is arguably the neshama of the Rebbe's Nesius.
not even Mesiras Nefesh, beyond. Basically just focusing on what the shlichus is. Totally, completely disregarding anything of your own wishes and wants, no matter how good it is, no matter how pure it is. The shlichus is the only thing that counts. Demand, what the Rebbe demanded, it was never demanded like you see, like in that mimer. This mimer greatly moved me, and I spoke to Yaina that I would like to have sichos in English, please, if they can translate this and make it available for the English-speaking audience. He did. And when it came out, he had a shir in 5 towns, and we learned the mimer over a number of weeks. One of the participants over there is a famous therapist, author, lecturer on post-addiction recovery. He was totally taken by the mimer, completely. I gave him many copies. He himself gives shiurim, and he's been learning this mimer with his patients and groups for years. With one group, he's been learning it for 3 years. He has made chassidim from people that have no shaykhs. He himself had no shaykhs to Chabad, and they had none, but this mimer is their neshama. That is sichos in English. To take a moment, to take chassidus, and create the same impact in a different area, same 66 years later, effective. Another time, we learned to Mayim Rabbim from Lamed Ches, and with a translation from sichos in English, and one of the participants was so moved by this mimer that he was going to sponsor. He was going to sponsor a Sefer Torah written in honor of his son's bar mitzvah, and instead he sponsored the first book of lessons in Mamarim. He himself has been giving out the book in business at business deals. Whenever he meets a Jew, he gives him the book, and he learns with other people. Sichos in English again has done this, has made this possible to so many people. The reason for the success of sichos in English is because of Yaina. Because Yaina was a living example of the message that the shlichus, it's all about the shlichus. In the mimer, one of the things that Rebbe explains in Leitiyah V'Shakela says, he brings out the famous Gemara that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was 120 years old, and he was on his deathbed, and he was crying. So his students asked him, "Why are you crying?" He says, "I don't know which way they're going to take me. I don't know if I did good, I don't know if I did bad, I don't know which way." So the Rebbe asks, "That's a good question. Why didn't he ask this question earlier?" That's a very important question. And the Rebbe answers, because he was so involved in the shlichus that he never took the time to see which direction. As long as he knew something had to be done, he ran after it. Never looking back to see which direction. As long as he's into the shlichus, that's what it was. Yaina is even a better example than Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Because 2 years ago, when Yaina got that sentence, and he had total kidney failure, and he was in the hospital, instead of asking questions of which way and this way and that way, in conversations with him, when he was busying himself, he was editing the Shulchan Aruch, he was editing Mamarim that was going to print. Because he had a mandate from the Rebbe that nothing that leaves, that goes to print, has to go through him. Has to go through him first. So if he's on a hospital bed at that time and he can't do anything else, well, there is something he can edit. And that's what he did while he was in the hospital. Sichos in English is the spirit of Yaina, and I was very happy that the family, and Shmuley in particular, is standing up and coming to take it to the next level. In conversations with the family, I was actually shocked on how little they knew of the projects that Sichos in English was involved in. But then again, knowing Yoina, I see why. He was so busy doing what he has to do, he never took the time to explain or speak about himself or show any which way. That was Yoina. At the end of the Maimer, the Rebbe says that if somebody lives like this, Hashem tells him, "Es misper yemecha amale," I will fill the days of your life. I will make you whole. And with that promise, I know that the future days of Sichos in English are going to, with this spirit of Yena, is going to be bigger and better.
The Rebbe's Man, the story of Sichos in English. Rabbi Yonah Avtzon, originally from Detroit, came to 770 in the 1970s. In those years, a shift was taking place in Lubavitch. Because of the Rebbe's influence, thousands of Yidden were returning to their roots and flooding the streets of Crown Heights. The Rebbe would verbring for many hours at a time, and for many of these Baalei Tshuva, though they stood among the crowd, they did not understand a word of what was being said.
When I started learning in the early 80s, Sefer Tanya Kadisha, the Tanya, which totally changed my life, I realized that it presented a very profound challenge to my world outlook. And it was an awesome experience. But when I tried to reach and to delve into Chabad Hasidic understanding, it was very difficult to do, because at that time, even though I could read Hebrew, I didn't understand what I was saying.
Several young yeshiva students took the initiative and began translating the Rebbe's talks, taking place in dormitory rooms and using ancient typewriters.
At that time, just a few of us Bocharim who took it upon themselves to translate the Rebbe's Sichos in English for those who were not able to understand Yiddish. At that time, we were just doing it voluntarily, and it was quite amateurish.
Rabbi Yonah recognized the tremendous value of the project. He arranged funds for a modern typewriter and took over the day-to-day operations, transforming this small side project into a true organization. And it took off. With Rabbi Yonah at the helm, Sichos were published in English consistently after every Farbrengen. Later, full books were printed, called, like the organization, Sichos in English.
So in the early 80s, almost the only books that explain Chabad Hasidus and the teachings of the Lubavitch Rebbe in English were Sichos in English.
Soon, Sichos in English, or SIE, began working on a way to get the Rebbe's words out to an audience that was not familiar with the lingo and style of 770. They began publishing essays, not simply translating the Rebbe's Sichos, but explaining the core topics that they addressed.
Well, this was the very first time topics were being presented as standalone essays in well-written, idiomatic language with an attractive typeset. Yonah received some criticism for not adhering literally to the Rebbe's words, but he was buoyed and infused with determination to continue with the fact that the Rebbe himself, on many occasions and in different ways, indicated approval.
A new era had begun in the dissemination of Hasidus. At times, the Rebbe would personally edit these essays, making specific corrections to the choice of wording and even the grammar. Yet in general, the Rebbe directed Rabbi Yonah to take personal responsibility in ensuring that these revolutionary essays and the subsequent books would remain true to their source. Rabbi Yonah understood the great responsibility he was entrusted with. Every sentence, every footnote, and even comma that was published by Sichos in English was reviewed by him personally. When the Rebbe began Farbrengen and delivering talks several times a week, Rabbi Yonah recruited translators in Eretz Yisrael, and SIE began a round-the-clock operation to disseminate the Rebbe's teachings.
He would call me. I was after davening in English. 10 o'clock, that was Israeli time. 11 o'clock Israeli time. Hey, I get a call. We got a question about the Sikha. Wait a second, no, it's middle. It didn't matter what was in the middle of the night. He had a question about the season.
SIE also began translating and explaining classic Hasidic works, such as the talks and writings of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. As the work grew, Rabbi Yonah did whatever needed to be done. He hired, he edited, he fundraised, he even delivered books. No task was too trivial, and no responsibility was too great, because Rabbi Yonah sought neither prestige nor financial gain from his work. He viewed SIE as his holy shlichus, and what mattered was only what was needed of him.
He had one goal in mind, and that was to impact the world through spreading Chassidus and transmitting the Rebbe's message to the entire world. That was his one goal. What could he do to bring the Rebbe Nachas? What could he do to impact the English-speaking world?
Every organization I knew has to somehow pay the bills in these years when I was in college coming to Crown Heights. We'd be holding a box of Sparrow or a CD that he released, or Shirin. He would come, meet me, his eyes would light up, and he would say, here you go, I want to give you some Chassidus, and he wouldn't even ask me for any money.
He just wanted to get the Rebbe's word out. But beyond that, he was also caring about other people. It was not only a commitment to get the Rebbe's word out, it was a commitment that, then a year, this Jew, a young man, a woman, they want to hear what the Rebbe said. Why can't they?
When the Rebbe initiated a campaign for all Jews to study a daily portion of Rambam, Rabbi Yonah got to work immediately, arranging for daily classes in English on the telephone to assist the public with this new study session. The Rebbe once acknowledged this special mission by calling him up at a Fabrengen as the shliach of my father-in-law, the Rebbe, for spreading the study of Rambam. When the Rebbe demanded the Hasidim do all they can to bring Mashiach, specifically by learning about the redemption, Rabbi Yonah was ready. Sikhs in English had prepared a book on the topic of Mashiach nearly 5 years earlier, but the Rebbe had not allowed it to be published, implying that the time was not right. Now, hearing the Rebbe's powerful words, Rabbi Yonah once again approached the Rebbe for permission, and now the classic volume, From Exile to Redemption, was born. After Gimel Tammuz, Tafshin Nun Daled, SIE adapted to the challenging reality by focusing on compiling the Rebbe's teachings by topic. Culling from the wealth of addresses and letters over the years, books were published on a wide variety of issues, such as marriage, health, trust in Hashem, the weekly Parsha, and Hasidic thought, and many books on the topic of Mashiach. One of SIE's most popular publications was an updated translation and explanation of the Hayom Yom, a compilation of inspirational teachings for each day named Tackling Life's Tasks. In recent years, Rabbi Yonah directed one of his most ambitious projects ever, a landmark translation of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, which was also beautifully designed. He lovingly edited every page, even while ill in the hospital. At the time of his passing, 8 out of 12 volumes had been published, with the rest at various stages of preparation. The 9th volume was delivered to his home during Shiva.
And the first copies came to our house last night.
The Baal Shem Tov once asked the Neshama of Mashiach, "My master, when will you arrive?" The latter replied, "When your wellsprings, the teachings of Chassidus, spread to the outside." Rabbi Yonah Avtzon took this mandate to heart, making Chassidus available to the English-speaking public and by extension to the entire world. These extraordinary accomplishments have certainly brought the world a giant step forward in the process towards the redemption.
Rabbi Yonah Avtzon is the single individual who is responsible more than anyone else for translating the Rebbe's works into print and publication and impacting thousands upon thousands of people throughout the entire world.
Seichel in English is able to present, and has presented, and to this day I think it's almost unmatched in the world of English translations and English teachings of Hasidus, the experience, the transcendent experience of Chabad Hasidus in a way that produces that kind of feeling.
Today, Sifis in English is responsible for thousands of translations and hundreds of volumes. These can be found in countless shuls, Chabad houses, and homes across the globe. They can even be found online at SIE.org and at Chabad.org, where Rabbi Yonah made the contents of his publications available for free. All so that one more Jew would have the opportunity to drink from the wellsprings of Hasidus.
I'm my 9th year here in North Miami Beach at the Balchubi Yeshiva, and I'm involved every day with the schools of spreading Oren, Hasidus, to hundreds of people, hundreds of souls every single year we get. And I can honestly say that one of the big influences in my life and my journey for searching for truth was Rabbi Avtzon.
So I'd like to say thank you to Yonah for what was truly a life-changing, an awesome experience of coming to learn the teachings of Lubavitch Rebbe, Chabad Hasidus. I'll be eternally grateful for it. I am eternally grateful for it.
Although Rabbi Yonah is no longer with us, his life work lives on.
Work is vital. It must continue in an ever-growing manner. And I hope that you can continue to support his amazing work and that it continues to grow ever more.
Under the leadership of his son, Rabbi Shmuley Avtzon, Sifis in English is committed to growing, expanding, and publishing the teachings of Hasidus until we finally merit the revelation of Mashiach. May it be now.
Our next speaker has been a colleague and friend of my father for decades. They have both dedicated their lives to transcribe and spread the Torah of the Rebbe. Rabbi Simon Jacobson, through Vadan Achsat Mimim and the Meaningful Life Center, has had the schus to spread the Rebbe's Torah to the world and worked in close proximity to my father. He has a unique perspective on how my father worked and his accomplishments. It is my honor to call upon Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Everyone could please take a seat. There's more seats in the middle.
Chafei Elul, the 25th of Elul, Tavshin Yud Aleph. Basically, right before Rosh Hashanah, 1951, which was several months after Yud Shvat, the Stalkus, the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe had not yet assumed officially leadership. So it was a Thursday night at 10:30 p.m. And my father-in-law, Oliver Shalom, or Heske Gansberg, mentioned earlier, who worked in publishing, typesetting, and publishing and printing all the Mamorim and Siches that the Rebbe, who was the publisher of Kahaz at the time, through the years when he arrived in America, the Rebbe in 1941. So my shver, my father-in-law, Heske Gansberg, was one of the people working in producing his materials. His birthday, his 22nd birthday, was that Shabbos, 27th of Elul. And he asked the Rebbe when he can go into Yechidus. Then it was very informal. And the Rebbe said he should go on Thursday night. So 10:30 he went into Yechidus. Here's what the Rebbe told him. The Rebbe said,
that on the day of your birthday, you'll surely learn the mimer that just came out from my Shver, Friedrich Rebbe of Gimel Slichas. And you should make an opportunity to go to the oil. My Shver said to the Rebbe, that's what the Rebbe wants me to do. If you have to go, you go. Basically suggesting, I'm right here in front of the Rebbe, I don't need to go there. So the Rebbe, sensing that, said to him, Geh dorten und red wie du redest dort. Go there and speak like you're speaking here, and tell the Rebbe, my Rebbe the Shver, meaning the Friedrich Rebbe, tell him that you were part of the team that prepared his mimer for publication for Rosh Hashanah. And then the Rebbe said to him, in concluding the Yechidus, he said, God should help, the Eibusher will help him. I'll say it in the original and then I'll translate. As a tale from the Inyanim was the Rebbe gewollt eisführen in der Welt, soll sich eisführen durch dir. God should help that part of the things the Rebbe wanted to accomplish in this world should be accomplished through you. I can't find a more appropriate, instead of our own accolades and comments and insights, to speak with the words of the Rebbe captures it better than anyone else can. The Rebbe himself was a publisher. That's what he did, day and night. We don't even know the extent, but everything the Rebbe did in 1941, everything that was published, went through the Rebbe's hands. And even in later years, when the Rebbe did not necessarily prepare everything, the Rebbe would look it over, and always, always, till the last day, before Chav Zayin Adar, the Rebbe would always write the date on the introduction to that kuntres or booklet or publication. So everybody in this world has their unique shlichus. Everyone. God sent us here, everyone here is indispensable, everyone has something that they and only they can accomplish. But there are individuals where you see it in such a blatant way that literally not only did everything possible to spread, translate, spread, publish the Rebbe's words, but also, and essentially was walking in the footsteps of the Rebbe himself. So that takes a whole different level. Because there we have the living example of the Rebbe, the ultimate and quintessential publisher. And everything we know about publishing and writing comes from the Rebbe. Indexing. I don't know if you're all that familiar with all the details the Rebbe personally spent hundreds of hours doing. So I was also thinking, everything's Hashgacha Pratis. We're right now in the beginning of Adar. This is a special period in time for many reasons. Besides Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha, this is also a 37-day period which is documented in an entire book, the first published book ever, called the Torah Shebiksav. So the Sefer Dvarim, Ela Dvarim Asher Diber Moshe, these are the words that Moshe spoke, were spoken in this 37-day period that began just a few days before the untimely and tragic Ptira of Rabbi Yena, the Shchedesh Shvat. Bayres HaTeira Hazeis, the Torah begins in Sefer Dvarim, that on Shchedesh Shvat, Moshe, knowing that he has 37 days more this earth. So what does a Rei Yisrael do, a true Rebbe? He makes sure that he's going to preserve the legacy that God gave him on Har Sinai. And the whole book of Dvarim takes place in these 37 days, from Rosh Chodesh Shvat to Zayin Adar, which is just a few days from now. This is the passing and the Shloshim of Rabbeinu. Now what does Rashi say on Bayres HaTeira Hazeis? Something that Rebbe quoted numerous times, countless times. B'shivim Lashon. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do exactly? He already gave over the Torah in 4 books. Bereshis, Shmos, Vayikra, and Bamidbar. And at that point the story ends. The Jews are raised on the east bank of the river Jordan. So what is this extra book here? So Mishnah Torah, Moshe reviews it all, but now in his words. But Rashi goes further. When you say Bayadas HaTorah, you could say, he explained the Torah. There's much to explain. We have a whole Torah Shabbat Peh, oral Torah to explain. Rashi says, B'shivim Loshim. He translated it to 70 languages. Here's not the place to go into. When exactly did he have time to do that? Just translating it to English is taking a little more than 37 days. But the Rebbe brings this, that it's Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the Rosh Chodesh of the month of Shvat, of Yud Shvat, that the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe says, was the one that pioneered the first time that Chassidus began being translated to English. We have a story here and there that Azad, the Rebbe Rashab's brother, translated a certain idea in Chassidus in Russian, but in a consistent manner it was the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe explains it in Yud Shvat, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, which is the Reish of the month, Bayadas HaTorah Azes, the Aved of our generation, Yefutza Meinesecha Chutza. Chutza doesn't just mean from the intellect to the emotions, or from Haskalah to Aveda, from ideas to action. It also means to reach the furthest outskirts, both quantity and quality, every corner of earth. And that's impossible in the original Hebrew. So what is the way to do it? You have to translate it. Translation is its own genius. It's even harder to translate than to say the original. The original you just repeat. If you translate it literally, it's very difficult to read. So how do you translate it in a way that's palatable and accessible to readers, but at the same time preserves the integrity? That's a whole art of its own. So it would be hard to ignore that the Petir, the passing, the tragic passing of Rabbi Yehuda and the Shloshim is taking place literally in these 37 days. When Moshe Rabbeinu first translated, Frierdiker Rebbe did it with Chassidus. The Rebbe, of course, took it to a whole other level. And though I know Rabbi Yehuda would not appreciate being in the same sentence with these great giants, but a student of the Rebbe turned it into a whole institution with hundreds of books. The envy of all of us. I'm a publisher, but I've not published hundreds of books, which is a feat. It's not that simple. I first met Yehuda when he was a bocher. We met in the building called 788 Eastern Parkway. This is the corner of Kingston Eastern Parkway, this mysterious office building above 770. If you ever go there, you'll see what I mean. It actually was once 2 apartment buildings, and they joined them, but they never architecturally joined them. So it's like catacombs. You can easily get lost and go in a circle and circle. This is the building. It's above 770, so all the tefillahs of 770 go through the offices upstairs. No hidden intentions with that. It's just a fact. So I met Rabbi Yehuda. I was already in the building working on Sefer Lekutim. It was my first so-called career as a bocher. Tavshel Zayin, encyclopedia on the Tzemach Tzedek's Maimor that the Rebbe instituted in Little Night in 1976. Tavshel Zayin. Rabbi Yehuda, as we saw in the video, was beginning the work, like all of us, without necessarily a plan. We just do what has to get done. So we met in these hallways and we would talk. My chazada, he would come. I already began also helping out of Adan Achsat women. So we had many common interests. One of the running so-called jokes that we both shared was almost like a driving ethos of our work, was that when the first volume of Sefer Lekutim was published, so we were Bochum students, and we went to Rabbi Chadikov, who was the second in command, was the Rebbe's chief of staff, and we asked if Rabbi Chadikov can give us permission to get a book, one book free for each one of the staff of this Sefer Lekutim, the encyclopedia. Rabbi Chadikov looked at us like completely like we're over the wall. Why would you get a book for free? That's what he said to us. So I remember who said, I said it or someone else, 2 of us were there, 3 of us. We said we worked on it, so it makes sense that we should get a book, you know? So he said, I remember in Yiddish he says, You think when somebody works in a bank, just because they're working with money, they can ask for money? He told us. So of course we had a response, but he always had the final say. You'll see in a moment. So our response was, yeah, because the people working in the bank have already a salary. They get paid a designated salary, so they can't just say, since we're working with money, we can get some more money. We don't have a salary, which he was quite aware of. So he says, again with shock, like complete disbelief, he says, you're getting much more than a salary. You're getting the nachas the Rebbe has from the work you do. So that's it. What do you say then? We're getting more than the bank employees. And how could you ask for something you're working with? You're getting already. Well, off the record, if you don't share it with others, even though this is being broadcast, is this turned us into somewhat of, I would say, maybe Chassidish thieves. The next time we didn't ask, we just took the books. It's not a hira to anybody, I'm just telling you what we did. Confession time. This age, you could already... It reminds me of Rapinya Altes, the big asken in Eretz Yisrael. It was by the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said to him, I need to understand something. Sanz, Kleisenberg, and others are building Pisim and Amsis. They're building institutions and hospitals in Israel. And by Yosef Chabad, there's barely a kfar, a shtetl, a dorf, a small town. So Rapinya, who had a sense of humor, and he had a certain, I guess, sprach with the Rebbe, says to the Rebbe, yeah, Varzei Rebbe, she Geld, und unser Rebbe schickt Maschke. Their Rebbe sends money, and our Rebbe sends Maschke. The Rebbe smiled, he got away with it. So this was a common, I remember a number of times, Yena was the first person I shared this with when we left Rabbi Chadikov's office. And he says, okay, there you go, that's my career. The nachas of the Rebbe. The Geld, it will come or not come. As was eloquently expressed by the mayor, and we see it on the videos. Yes, completely selfless, dedicated servant. I could be a complete witness to that in hundreds of ways. I'll just share one, which I think is a lesson for all of us. In 1989, so Yena was already publishing many sichos in English, the essays, books, the actual sichos and farbrengens. It was going out, I mean, at least our joke was every month Yena gives out another book. That was more or less what it was. I don't know how he did it, to be honest, but he did it. So at that point there was an idea, because the Rebbe was, at that point there were fax machines, so we were beginning to prepare the sichos that could go out quickly to people by fax. Up till the fax machine, you have to remember, the only way you saw a published version of the sicha was through the mail. Or you heard it on the phone, which was very limiting. So people didn't have a full text of a farbrengen until usually 10 days after the farbrengen, because it took 4 or 5 days to prepare. Then it went on the mail. By the time they had the farbrengen, there was another farbrengen already. So the fax machine actually revolutionized the distribution. So we began preparing then a short version of the Mamish Mitzvah Shabbos, not edited, a short version that people could have something to read. Around 1987. Then began a demand, people wanted in other languages. But fast, they wanted Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. And now the languages ended up being, I think, over 15 languages. Talking about Portuguese, Persian, Italian, Russian. Now, of course, English. I didn't want to go publish English, even though we were publishing Portuguese and literally Persian. Because Yena speaks in English. So I went to Rabbi Yena, and I knew, usually these type of situations is a lot of red tape. Get permission, it's our copyright, etc., etc. I don't have to share all the different ways people deal with this issue. Rabbi Yena, without hesitation, said, what's the question? Of course do it. What's the name? And he could have said, I'll do it. It's our organization. We're responsible for the English. I never forgot it, because it was not even with a question. It wasn't like, how are you going to do it? Let's coordinate. Let's make sure we have the same version. It didn't, nothing. Go ahead, do it. 2 years later, 1989, we had an idea to publish in English a week in review. That's when Yankee Tauber came on board. And by the way, Rav Meir, you made the shidduch. Talk about shidduchim. Because you told me you wrote a Color War song. So, hey, that's definitely credentials to write this, translate sichos, right? Where else do we learn how to write? So, I went to him and said the same thing. We want to give out this week in review a short summary. It was not instead of Sikhs in English, and again, without hesitation. It's alone as a lesson for all of us. And I just saw the Sikh you published for today, is exactly that point, the second Sikh. That the cause is more important than you. And here it wasn't even an issue. It wasn't like we were trying to undermine or in any way replace. I can share hundreds and hundreds of stories because we worked in that way, even though it was different languages. But this is exactly what was said. There's no exaggeration. I have not seen a selfless person like that. Really. Completely selfless. I don't think there's an issue where his ego would get in the way in the publishing. And maybe that was the reason he was able to publish hundreds of books. Because it was just the cause as was already described here. You know, when I actually spoke to Yaina the night of the passing, a few hours before, and he told me he had a difficult day. You know, I didn't believe that he would be taken, but he was. However, as I said before, there are few people in this world that not only they know their mission, and not only they dedicated to it completely, but it's actually the Rebbe's mission in the closest possible way. As the Rebbe told us, and this is especially important after Gimel Tammuz, as the Rebbe told us, Ano nafshis ksovis Yehovis, Anoichi, the first word in the Ten Commandments, which as we know encompasses the whole Torah. Everything is in the word Anoichi. Is an acronym the Gemara says, I, Anoichi, and Ani nafshis ksovis Yehovis. I have engraved my soul, God says, in these words. The Torah is not words. It's not a book. It's God's soul that manifests in language. And tzaddikim deimu lebeiram, a tzaddik is like the Beda, same with the Rebbe, the Rabbeim. The words of the Rebbe Rashab, before his istalkus on Beis Nissen, Ir gein himmel, d'ksovim lo zechaych. I go to heaven, the writings I leave for you. The Rebbe asks, what's the connection between the first half of the phrase and the second? And the answer is, because it hat mir in himmel, durch meine ksovim lo zechaych. It wasn't just, I'm going away, and I'm leaving you my writings like some consolation. You want me, as I am in my core essence, including in heaven, it's in these words. And you have hundreds of sikhs. The whole celebration of Hey Tavis is about this. How the words of a Rebbe is his soul, pieces of him. The Rebbe's words, shtiklach for Rebbe. It's not just a book, it's not just words. It's the soul. What did the Rabbeim do most of their day and night? They spoke and wrote Chassidus. Which is interesting. Of all things, they could have sat and hundreds of people, thousands of people would come to them for counsel. No, they did that. But the majority of the time, just count the books of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe and Samach Tzedek, Rebbe Marash, Rebbe Rashab, Friedrich Rebbe. There's no way to do that unless you're spending most of your time. They felt that was the greatest thing they could leave us, because that's their essence expressed in language. Exactly as the Torah is, Anon Nafshis Ksavos Yehovos. So to have a mission like that, and dedicate your life, I don't think it was even a Havamin, I don't think he even made a cheshbon. He knew it in his gut, in his blood, that this is what you do, and there's no greater thing you do. And that's what the Rebbe dedicated his life to. And that's what Rabbi Yeni dedicated his life to. Sometimes things have to be spelled out, even if they're obvious. I heard from one of the secretaries, Rabbi Groner, that in the early 60s, I believe, the Rebbe called him in and said, I'd like from here on that everyone that sends a letter to me, you should make an index card with their name and contact information, address, phone number, and everything. And create a database. It wasn't called a database then. It was called a Rolodex. And make a list of all these, have all these cards in alphabetical order. And the Rebbe explained, so that way, I want to send everybody a Rosh Hashanah greeting at the end of the year. So we'll have it all available. We don't have to start looking for it. And do it as the letters come in. We have the return address. And he began preparing these index cards. Hundreds, thousands of index cards. around, I'm not sure exactly when, sometime in the summer, the Rebbe said, so now start preparing the letters for the Neshama Teva. The Rebbe would send a letter. It was a Michtav Klali Prati, like a form letter, but the Rebbe read each one and edited and signed. Prepare the letters addressed to all these people that are on these index cards. So that's what he did. Began typing, taking these letters, typing their name, preparing the addresses, and then would bring them all into the Rebbe for signing. Took a few days, I'm not sure how much time. One day he comes into the Rebbe's office, and there you have a whole pile of letters signed, and he sees there's a small pile on the side that the Rebbe separated. And the Rebbe sees that he's like wondering what that pile is. The Rebbe said, "Das ein Diva, ein Shein Ishtar." I don't know the exact expression. Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's Anavek. Basically, those that have passed on. So the Rebbe took out all those letters and put them in a second pile. Okay, so Rabbi Groner's taking these two piles. Obviously, in his mind, the first pile he'll put into envelopes, seal it, and mail it. Second pile, I don't know what he was going to do with it. The Rebbe says to him, where are you taking the second pile? She says the Rebbe's, basically, he suggested that the Rebbe said, like, you don't need them anymore. So the Rebbe said the following words. Erstens, darfen ze echad mashana teva. These people that are, the Neshamas already left this world. Und zweitens, the Adresse wird zu schicken, bestamme weißt du nicht. There's lo zei doch. The address where to send these letters, you probably don't know, so leave them here. Think about this. First of all, and after that he said every year before Rosh Hashanah he would send a pan, not just for himself, but also for his parents who already passed on. The Rebbe said, so you have a lesson right there. But here's what I wanted to emphasize. You know, two things. Every neshama has an address. We little mortal human beings who have very myopic vision and barely know anything about even our conscious lives have no clue where this address is. But you have a Gneisa Rebbe that doesn't know where the address is. And that's very consoling. There's an address, and the Rebbe knows where the address is. I would suggest that Avtzon maybe. When it comes to a person like Yena Avtzon, not only does he have an address, but we know where the address is. When Rapinya Altes, who I mentioned earlier, passed away in Tavshin Chav Gimel, so Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe spoke about him. And he said, "Mizol zingen a Yud Beis Tammuz nigen," a song of Yud Beis Tammuz, that Rapinya would sing. And then the Rebbe said these words, with tears in his voice, teary voice. The Rebbe said, "Und sicher singt mit, wo is in Gan Eden mit dem Rebbe." And definitely he's singing with us as we sing down below. He's singing with us together with the Rebbe. So a person who spent, we're talking about 40 plus years, such dedication in the core mission of your Chutza Ma'anesecha Chutza, with the selflessness, with the challenges, that here's not the day, maybe if I bring in we could talk about it. A lot of challenges, besides financial ones. So a person like that, his address is very clear. It's sitting right with the Rebbe, just like Rapin is singing with the Rebbe. He's essentially a shliach of the Rebbe in the world of publishing that the Rebbe did. And though we want to have neshamas begufim, ultimately we want a neshama beguf. All these constellations and all the spiritual and the eternity of neshamas is very powerful. And yes, that keeps us alive. And ma'azare b'chayim, afu b'chayim is also a very powerful message. But we were also taught, and the Rebbe said it time and again, that we want a neshama beguf. So for the short period right now, the neshama beguf of Rabbi Yena is his children, his family, and in a way all his talmidim, and Yikrayim Bonim, students are also called children. And when I heard, literally the first night of Shiva, Rab Shmulia and the family are continuing, it was a tremendous simcha in my own heart, because that is the sign of eternity. Yes, Rabbi Yena was one and only, yet a spirit of him in Zare B'chaim continues on. I have no doubt, say Yofa Keach HaBen Lekeach Ha'av, that the power of a son is Yofa, more beautiful, more powerful than the Keach Ha'av. The Chassidus says, was Samach to Samach translated into English. He brings it there. And Yofa Keach HaBen Lekeach Ha'av, you could also interpret Mikeach Ha'av, not just greater than Keach Ha'av. That itself, that he's greater, that itself comes the power of the Father, because children can reveal atzmizdika, core strengths that are not necessarily always seen in the lifetime of that person. So I pledge here, my own personal pledge, and I hope everybody makes the same pledge, to do everything possible, not just to continue, but Mailam B'Kedish, one of the Rebbe things that he always insisted, there's no such thing as something ending. There's no such thing as just continuing. If it's a challenge, you have to then kaflam it to Shia twice as much. I don't know if you can pull off twice as many books a month like your father, Shmuel, but to try. And with our support and with their commitment and the spirit of Rebbeinu, we continue marching forward, doing the biggest shlichus of all, the empowerment of individuals with the Torah of Chassidus. If Moshe Rabbeinu had only left students and no Torah, and no Mishnah Torah, and no Bayis HaTorah Azes, it would probably not have lasted. And the Rabbeim didn't just leave us students and Talmidim, but they left us doctrine. Thank God. Pure, undiluted, core information, Divrei Elokim Chayim, straight from the source. And it's our mission is to translate it, both literally and figuratively, into the language that makes it accessible to every one person on earth, and distribute it. The Rebbe once wrote, "Kimedumani shahaloshen hu lo yatfisu meinesecha chutza el yafutzu meinesecha chutza." That the Kimedumani is the Rebbe's like tongue-in-cheek saying, I think the language that the Mashiach, Moshe Rabbeinu heard from Mashiach, is not the printing of the wellsprings outward, but spreading the wellsprings outward. Printing and spreading is not the same thing. Spreading is distribution, reach. So may you, the family of Shmuley, and your support and team and everyone involved, and all of us in our way, continue this great shlichus. This is not just prepares for the Geula, but it's me'ein the Geula, it's tayamel. This is a taste of the Torah of Mashiach, Terasha Shel Mashiach. As we're taught that on Friday before Shabbos, you taste from the foods of Shabbos. Chassidus is a taste of the Geula. To continue with this tasting until we can have the full course dinner with the Rebbe, the Rabbeim, and especially also the Shloshim that dedicated their lives to doing everything possible to disseminate these words. And as I said, we know exactly where the address is, both above and below. May it be Matzliach. And may we take the loss and the grief and the sadness and turn it into Bedina Yektzeiru, into a flourishing and blossoming of the spreading of Chassidus through the world, till we're really Zeicha to Mola Oretz Deis Hashem, Kamayim Layom Echasim, a world filled with divine knowledge, which is Teres Chassidus, as the waters cover the sea.
It is now my pleasure to call up my brother, Rabbi Shmuley Avtzon. On behalf of my mother and siblings, I want to thank Shmuley for taking upon himself to continue the message of Sechus English, B'Yasses, B'Yasseres. There's no question that Tati is getting tremendous nachas from seeing the message continue, Mechayel Ofayel. Rabbi Shmuley Avtzon.
To the words of Rabbi Jacobson, who behalf of the family, we would like to start together to sing a nigun that was very dear to my father. My father would sing this nigun pretty much every Friday night meal, and hope the Olam can join with us together. Ya 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 na na ma la da da. Coming here at the end of this amazing event, truly an emotional moment. And really, what is there? What is there to say? What is there left to say? Though, on the other hand, however much we'll say, it won't be enough to describe the unbelievable impact my father had on so many people. But then today I got a very interesting email, which, for obvious reasons, I'll only read parts without a name. And I think that maybe this describes who my father is, the moisid that he ran and that he runs, and the impact he had on people around him. So I got this email in today from one of the Sikhs and English writers. Not one of there's the big writers, ones that write a lot of books, and there are those that from time to time will write certain books. There's the freelancers will write some books for the moisid. And he writes to me, writing that it's so hard for all of us to process what happened. I'm still in shock of what happened. Nevertheless, one thing is for sure, and that is that the work must continue. And then he says, I have a plan. He reached out to me during the Shiva and said, I have something to discuss with you, and I'll get back to it later. And he wrote to me today that it's right before it's the day of the Shloshim. I want to get it off my chest and let you know what I have in mind. And basically, he has in mind, he's writing a series of books, and he wants the citizen English involved in the publication. And basically, he writes like this. He says he wants to do a L'ilui Nishmas, my father. So he writes to me, this is the model that I'm putting forth. Right? There's two sides here. There's the writer, and then there's the publishing house. So obviously everyone has their rights and everyone has their needs that have to be taken care of. So this is his side of the bargain. He writes to me, Shmuley, I would do all the writing for you, pay for the editing, and then give you the book to print and sell, and you could keep the profits. I'm like going through the email and trying to figure out what's the kunst. There must be there's a PS at the bottom, but that's it. That's what I want. I will insert a haktasha to your father as the guiding inspiration of the project. You would probably have to edit the books to make sure they are in line with SIE standards. And I'm like, where's this coming from? What am I missing? And then I realized, and this is brought out very well in the second essay printed in today's Chura, that my father would fondly speak about again and again. He always went back to it. He had a personal Indian in that essay. He was personally involved in a story going on at the time that brought about that sikha that Rebbe said. But my father, being a Rishon Moisid, besides he didn't have his ego, and him allowing other people to take credit and not looking for financial gain, being around him, it created that environment. Now, I'm not here to say that this person's chesed that he's doing came from my father. So if my father's, the culture he created in the Moisid created such people, or it attracted such people, but this emes that he stood for, and this emes that he had, and that was what he was, this is the culture that was created around him, and this is the people that gravitate towards my father and towards Sikhs and English. We were shocked in a very positive sense and overwhelmed by the support. The community at large, and so many people from so many walks of life showed to the family, to the Moisid, over the past, starting the Shiva and over the past month, over 1,500 people took part in the campaign, which is an unbelievable number. Besides for many people that helped out in so many other ways. And really, we just have to give a tremendous thank you to the entire community, Crown Heights community, the general Chabad community, and even outside of Chabad. Specifically, I would like to extend our appreciation to the family, the extended Avtzon family, the Chazan family, the Crown Heights community, friends, for the support you have given us, the Minyanim, at home, and 770 and elsewhere, the contribution to the campaign, and Click Consulting, run by Mr. Shani Edelman, for the tremendous help they have given us from my father's untimely passing over the entire month. Special appreciation for the Shloshim, for those that helped us out with the Shloshim event. Again, Shani Edelman and Click Consulting, Ms. Chana Peterson, Shammai Chain from 321 Motion Videos, Chani Maleki, Vad Printing, Beis Rivka, Fitcha Ben Shimon, Chani Maleki, Levi Hillel, Albany Bakery, and Mika Sofer from COL, and for her help over the entire month. Going forward, so much was said, and there's so much to take from my father, and I'm sure everyone can take something from the different speakers, the different presentations we have brought here. If it's my father's emes, if it's his tremendous Avos Yisrael. So many people turn to the family and ask, who's taking over Shidduchim? Take it. Obviously, in the family, there will be those that will do their part, but it's a free market, and everyone, please, you're all invited to take part. Afatzas Mayanis, through your help to the Moisid, your own Afatzas Mayanis, be the Rebbe's mouthpiece, be Meifetz Mayanis, in all languages, especially in the English language. Specifically on our part, on the family and Sichos in English. So just like we printed here tonight, a few essays from Sichos in English, what we would like to do over the next few months, for the year, is we will give out weekly different Sichos and essays from the original Sichos in English set. Some of these were never printed in book form. Part of the set was never fully printed, it's really not available. We will reprint together with different Hagoyes, minus, Kisvei Yad answers that the Rebbe has given, and advice, direction in such amazing ways to my father and the Moisei Sichos in English. And hopefully we would like to, specifically dedicate to my father, reprint the original set. There's been a lot, just over the last month, so many people have asked if the original set can be available. It hasn't been around in over 30 years. And Mirz Hashem, anyone that wants to join that project is more than welcome. And we hope you all, the Chayit and Alibay, take to heart all these amazing things we have learned from my father. And we know Zare B'chayim, Hu B'chayim, personally, myself, my siblings, on the direction of my mother, we will do all we can to continue my father's life. My father never stopped to reap the benefits of his work. For some reason, I doubt even now if he's doing that. I don't know if he knows how, unless in the Ilma Emes they have these. Some people, you have to change a little bit. I don't know if he had it in him. And one special project that would be amiss if we didn't mention, the Shulchan Aruch project, which is really, over the last few years, this was his entire life. I was with him in the hospital 2 years ago. I was with him in the last few days of his life, speaking to him. And this is what he was doing, working on the Shulchan Aruch project. There's a volume, the first volume, as in the first print of the new volume came to the house during the Shiva, will be available in a few months. There's another volume going to print, and then another few volumes, Yirtzeh Hashem, over the year. And hopefully within a year and a half, the Shulchan Aruch project will be finished. And this will be just unbelievable. A masterpiece will become a staple in every Chabad home, Chabad house, yeshiva, and outside of Chabad as well. May we reunite with my father, the Gula, Shlema, with the Rebbe Bereshenu, and my father will definitely get a good spot there, and may it be taken from Yad Mamish. Thank you all so much for coming and participating. After this event, there will be a Farbrengen. We ask family, friends, please feel hamish, sit down, feel free to share stories, anecdotes, lessons. We know our father was our personal father of the family, but he was a Ish Tzibur, a person of the community. He gave his life to the community, and as we've seen over the last month, the community gave us so much in return. Thank you all very much. Thank you. There will be a few minyanim Ma'ariv. taking place now.
Yeah.